Now we will see why and how the risk related to X-ray imaging has been minimized. Although mammography-induced cancers could have been suspected early from the excess of breast cancers and from the failure of mammography programs to prevent breast cancer mortality, they have been ignored for two main reasons. First, scientific errors, but also non scientific reasons like harassment and denial. There were errors in estimating the dose relationship effects of radiations. Unlike drugs, radiation is delivered by a source. The total quantity of radiation absorbed is a function of time. On a film or a dosimeter, the effect will be the same with the high dose rate in a short time and with the low dose rate in a long time. However, for living cells and organisms, there are ways to cope with damages, which will vary with time. Actually, it is impossible to evaluate the risks by the total dose. If you spend 5 hours under the sun, you get burned. If you spend half an hour under the sun for 10 days, you get tanned. If you drink 2 liters of vodka in 2 hours, you die. If you drink 2 liters of vodka in 2 months, you survive. However, it is often considered that the total dose is important, whereas the dose rate is much more important. Therefore, when one compares the risk related to imaging to the annual dose related to natural radiation background, this is misleading. In addition, a linear relationship is not consistent with the observed effects of high-dose irradiation. It is well known that for tumor killing, it is better to fractionate the dose. 6 doses of 1 gray is better than 6 grays. Despite proof that the linear model is wrong, it is used for safety guidelines. It is used because it is possible to draw a straight line from the epidemiologic data due to the huge confidence interval. The confidence interval is huge because at the time of the first epidemiological studies, almost everybody was exposed to radiations from medical imaging. The control group was not a control group, and the effect of low doses were studied on groups with heterogeneous doses from medical imaging. Already there was a huge problem of conflict of interests in acknowledging the effect of low doses. John Goffman was a nuclear physicist and physician. He was one of the most prominent experts of the health effects of radiation. He was director of the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory Biomedical Research Division from 1963 to 1965, and he raised questions about the lack of data about low-dose radiations. He used the density of physician population as a surrogate for accumulated dose from medical radiation. From a huge compilation of the literature, Goffman deduced that 75% of breast cancers in the USA in the 80s were related to medical imaging. He thought that most of the increase in cancer incidence in the USA could be related to radiology. In these figures, the density of physician population and presumably availability and use of radiation equipment is used as a surrogate for accumulated dose from medical radiation. These results are consistent with the worldwide observation that age-adjusted cancer rates are correlated with the Human Development Index of countries. During the 60s, the American Atomic Energy Commission maintained there was a safe threshold of radiation with no cancer hazard as a justification for exposure to atomic bomb tests. The work of Goffman and Templin showed that there was no threshold and found that the dose-response relationship was supralinear. As a consequence, Goffman's budget was cut and he was banned from publications. There is no rebuttal of his conclusions, but scientists are forced to ignore his findings, otherwise they are banned too. In an upcoming presentation, I will explain who's contributing to this law of silence and how I believe they are perpetuating one of the biggest health scandals in modern history. In another presentation, I will address the question of women with genetic predisposition whose cells cannot repair the DNA double-strand breaks caused by X-rays.